It's morning and we're like 20 seconds early, which is like never a thing with me. So that you know this is going to be a good one. So this is our second GenerEOS GenPool Spotlight BP episode. I'm pretty excited about this one. Of course, we have the blog that we have people write about, but sometimes we like to bring them on and talk, face to face, because a lot more can happen. And so this is a really exciting one for me because you're kind of, even though you're on the other side of the continent, I think there's only really two block producers in Australia total. Yeah. And so we have Ross on the line from EOSphere, which is really nice to have you. So Ross, who are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about EOSphere to get us going. And let's start there.
So my name's Ross Dold. I am the one of the partners of EOSphere Australia. The other partner is actually my wife, Shelley Dold. So we pretty much run EOSphere here out of Perth. Even though, we're in Perth, most of the team are around Australia. So we got involved with EOSIO pre the launch in 2017, where we started. I remember we had like a meeting amongst some guys in town. We're going to put together a block producer pitch. That was around like December 2017. And we actually ended up doing a road show around the whole of Australia to kind of bootstrap the whole idea and concept of EOS. Back then, even though it was EOSIO as the platform, but it was EOS. It was the main net that we were going to be going after to actually build. We put together an original team with a whole lot of veteran cryptocurrency type guys. We'd all been involved in everything from Litecoin and Bitcoin, and we were Steam witnesses. We ran BitShares nodes, and this was just like we'd been following Dan Larimer, so it was like the next logical step. We're getting into it, and we went and ran this road show. We went to every single city in Australia within 2 weeks, or every single capital city, and that was full on, man. Yeah, that was a real full on, crazy, wild ride. If you go to our YouTube, you can actually see our you can actually see some snippets of that whole tour. And through that tour around the country, we actually got to meet Ralph at one of our events in Sydney. Off the back of that, that's how GenerEOS was formed. It's like, hey, look at these guys on the West Coast. They're gonna become a block producer. Let's form one GenerEOS and run that in Sydney, right? So we've been friends for quite some time. So EOSphere itself now has gone through many different development cycles. Where we're at the moment is a team of 10 guys and girls, and we run infrastructure and services for 7 chains. So that's I actually wrote them down because I always forget one. So it's EOS, Telos, Wax, FIO, Proton, and then of course the Jungle testnet, which we've been involved with from the get-go.
No, it's good. Yeah, I remember like back in the day when I first started following EOS, there was about maybe two or three block producers that I followed vigilantly, and EOSphere was one of them. For whatever reason, you guys were always popping up on my radar, like early EOS days. You were always there, you were always active, you were always doing stuff. And so I remember that being like a big part of my knowledge before I was ever really involved in the space myself, for whatever reason. So thank you for that. That was rare. I think like EOSphere, EOS New York was another one. They're long gone now. That was always on the radar. And I believe like, who was the other one? I can't remember. There's another one that isn't really that prominent anymore either.
There aren't many left from like the original OG days. Right. I was actually speaking to Shelley about it a few weeks back, and we've been very consistent. We've always been here, and we haven't just sort of faded into the night or shut down operations. Even in the midst of crypto winter, we kept at it, evangelizing EOS, and now it's more. We talk more about EOSIO. We talk about EOSIO as the platform. We've got a development business that we launched off EOSphere. It started off as EOSphere Dev, and then it rebranded to Rewired.one, mainly because some of our clients weren't able to get funding if they were associated with BPs from some of these VC, including EOS VC. So we created Rewired.one as a separate self-standing business, which, we own a stake in that business. But we're still building on EOSIO. A lot of it is in the private space still. There's no question that EOSIO is fantastic technology. Even with all of the idiosyncrasies of the various main nets and governance discussions, but people are still running it in the back end, in private chains, because it gets the job done as far as blockchain technology goes.
Right, and like I had this conversation last night on our roundtable when we were talking a little bit about the overall kind of viewpoint of EOS. It seems to me like in North America, mostly in the US, EOS has got a bad name amongst crypto people. But for the most part, like if you're looking at Asia or Europe or, I guess, South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, EOS still has a really good name, right? It's only in the US that, in my opinion, that it kind of gets a harsh public decorum, like perspective, if that makes sense. The rest of the rest of the continent seem to kind of embrace it and just throw it in with the rest of other great blockchain technologies. I don't know why that is, if I'm honest about it, but it just seems to be the way of things.
There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I see the varying degrees of push from the EOSIO/EOS community, evangelizing how it's not consuming all of the electricity in the world, and it's not run by like one business, and Block One don't own the main net. It's all that kind of stuff. It's definitely a bit of FUD out there and misinformation.
Yeah, but like you said, like most of the block producers that I'm in touch with, that I know, they're heads down working hard on a number of different blockchains. Not paying attention to, because I mean, even within EOS, there's a little bit of FUD, right? But like not paying attention to all of this and working hard to like excel the motives of various blockchains. For example, like Telos, all that they're doing, their push out into the space. Sometimes they get a bad rap, but they're one of the few blockchains that has actually breached the EOS echo chamber in a sense, right? I mean, you look at something like FIO or Wax or even now Ultra. These are probably going to be some of the biggest blockchains in their space to reckon with. And I think there'll come a point where a lot of people don't even associate them with EOS anymore, right? They're just that big, and they're going to become their own entities. So
I know whenever I evangelize any of our partner chains, I'm always putting hashtag EOSIO at them.
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
It's probably a good thing that Block One Twitter and EOSIO Twitter are two separate things now. So you can see EOSIO as like a platform that you can build any kind of blockchain mainnet from. You can see that now there's a differentiation.
Yeah, I think it's only going to grow more and more as you have different governance structures. Like, for example, now you've got the Wax Council that are kind of running things, managing things. I'm not really sure what's going on with Ultra. Like, they're quite quiet recently, but I would imagine that's for good reason as well. Yeah. So, but I was interested. I was interested. I sent you a list of questions. We might get to some of them, but I like to play off of what people say, because I noticed this when I was putting the descriptor together for the show, and I was looking, at the website and stuff like that. And that was the first time I actually realized that it was you and your missus that had started this company essentially together. And I I
actually had there were some other co-founders, but people.
I lost you. You're muted. No, I can't hear you, Ross.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It was there was actually a group of about 5 of us that started it, including my wife, Shelly, and those guys kind of went off and did their own businesses. But Shelly and I are now the two sole owners of EOSphere. but she was
Okay.
definitely one of the founding members. There were a few of us.
Like,
Also,
so I'm kind of curious, like how that came about. Like, you guys were just out for dinner one night and you were talking about blockchain, like, and you guys were just like, hey, let's start a BP, right? Because I think that's really like interesting that like I mean it says here, you know, her rundown, and obviously she's really intelligent. She's got like a background in, you know, management and like technology and things that are kind of related to that. Like I'm just kind of curious like how that all came about. Because it's
so
you don't
she,
find power couples in the space very often, honestly.
I'll tell you, this is the honest truth. It all started like this. I was mining Litecoin, right? And our electricity consumption was just going crazy at home. In Australia, it's pretty pricey. I think it's 25 cents a unit. So that's 25 cents per kilowatt hour, right? For the day. Anyhow, it's pretty pricey, right? So especially when you're pulling, 2 kilowatts from the wall inside the study. And she used to always be on at me about, what is this all about? I mean, Litecoin was only a few cents, right? It's like, why are you even doing this? And I think, and it was more like a justification to her about what we were doing. And then my mining GPU rack started to grow and grow and grow. And to a point where there was the first bull run that I was actually involved with, which was, I think, around 2012, 2013. I can't remember the dates, but it was suddenly viable for us to be mining Litecoin. And Shelley went and actually purchased the Radeon cards that I was using to mine it. And then the big drive. So she was kind of involved with, she knew that I was mining, and she was kind of involved with paying the power bill.
Right.
Then when we participated in the Ethereum Olympic testnet, and it became quite clear to us that there was going to definitely be some value, and she was getting more and more involved with blockchain technology and how we could actually make some money out of this as just her and I, just not so much as a business. When Steemit came out, Shelley actually started a blog. She was the Steemit wife, and she had some decent success. You can go look at some of those old posts, right? They like parodies of being the wife of somebody that was involved in the cryptocurrency world. And so she's totally been a part of the journey, right? I mean, I've been doing all the technical, and she's been helping me pay for some of the stuff. When we decided to move forward with our EOS BP, Shelley, obviously with a background in marketing and events coordination, she immediately, it was like totally inside of her wheelhouse, because we did that road show. So she did like all the organizations of all the venues and invites, and she got all of our merch done and stickers and all that stuff. She did all of that, and from then she was just been part of EOSphere. As we moved into the company sort of going through different phases of other team members, it was just natural that she's my wife. She's working with me on a day-to-day basis. Her and I both equally own the company now going forward. She at this point, most of her effort is all in the compliancy type stuff. So we are an Australian registered PTY Limited. She does all of the tax stuff. She works with our accountant to make sure that we kept whole, and whatever tokens we send for charities or projects that we invest in, and how we pay for infrastructure and all this kind of stuff, and our team, all that kind of stuff. She does all that and makes sure that we kept whole as far as the Australian tax office goes. That's a full-time job, I can tell you. It's pretty damn complicated negotiating the whole crypto tax space in Australia, and she completely handles that. And yeah, so excellent team. She keeps me my spending on infrastructure and things in check, and handles all of the tax. And whenever we have events and stuff, she does all the coordination for that.
Yeah, I noticed there she does quite a bit of what's it called? She's in charge of some media. I lost it. It was on the page. Some media, EOS media branding or something like nationwide in Australia, right?
Yeah, she does all of that stuff. And she
cool.
like proofreads our articles and stuff, to make sure that we're keeping true to our brand.
Yeah, that's always good. I need more people to proofread my articles. But, yeah, I mean, like I said, I like what you guys are doing, but let's go back a little bit because I want to know yourself personally, right? Like you kind of told a little bit about like your history with Litecoin and mining and stuff like that. But I'm just kind of curious, like, how did you learn about blockchain or get into blockchain in the first place, actually?
So I'm a technical person. I've been working in the integration space since 2000 and no, actually 1999 is when I started. I'm a Cisco certified engineer. I'm actually a CCIE, so I'm quite involved with handling complex networks and hardware and technology. And because of that, your interest kind of grows out of more than just networking and security. You start looking at databases. You start looking at what is this fad? What's this crazy? There's a coin that you can mine using your CPU, which was that was like Bitcoin when it started, and because of that, I was kind of more interested in getting the most amount of hash power out of a limited amount of mining or out of GPUs. I mean, it fascinated me. So it definitely started with that. It was more like an interest in the technology of hash power before it was like, oh, okay, hey, these tokens are actually worth something, and from that it kind of just grew that my mining rigs got bigger and bigger. I could see that I could offer more services. I could see that there was a community. Hey, wow, and now only we start talking about, wow, this is changing how finance works in the world. This is changing how we can put stuff into a decentralized immutable database. Hey, this can eliminate a middleman. Wow, you can do a smart contract on a blockchain. What the hell? This is awesome. And it kind of snowballed from there. But yeah, I'm a technical guy, and that's where I started. So before even thinking about finance or making money.
Yeah, so I mean, there seems to be a lot of that coming from the early days. I think, especially pre EOS people. But what was it about EOS then that kind of got you hooked? Like, you must have heard something about the EOS. Was it the EOS tech stuff? Was it Dan's vision? What was it about EOS that kind of got you on board onto this side of things?
Well, I was quite familiar with graphene technology, working with Steam, half a second block times, the ability to have nested authorities on the chain itself, having something that it can support smart contracts, having a platform for people to actually launch their dApps on that had zero transaction fees. All of that just made total sense to me. And of course, like I said, we've been following Dan Larimar. We still believe in Dan Larimar's ultimate vision. It would be great if we could just see one of them go from zero to full-on mainstream adoption. I mean, I still believe in BitShares, right? I think Steemit was fantastic as well, except for the whole debacle. What happened with the Tron CEO. But Hive is still there. Hive still is pulling that original vision through the years, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting to note about BitShares, right? Because like BitShares, it seems like it never really went away. It never really picked up the way that a lot of these other mainstream platforms did, but it's still there. It's still running in the background. It's still doing what it was intended to do. And like, I think like they're doing some really interesting things under the radar with Clarion and some of those other social like networks that are baked into that. So I don't think you're going to see it disappear. If anything, I think you're going to see it become a little bit more prominent in the future going forward, and probably tie into like EOS mainnet, especially, and maybe some of the other chains as well.
Well, the whole idea of a decentralized exchange, I had never heard of it until BitShares. I was like, wow, what decentralized exchange? DEX? What's this thing? And that was really interesting. And I think that I think Bullish is going to have some degree of decentralized exchange on it. I'm not entirely sure of what the final product's going to look like, but you would expect that it would have that.
Right. Yeah. Sorry for the delay. I keep pausing because you can hear the cicadas in the background. It's that time of the summer where they're just like chirping. So I don't know how loud it is on that end. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. And I would almost say that with BitShares and the decentralized exchange idea, Dan might have actually been ahead of his time. Like, and in the creation of that platform, it might have actually been a little bit too early for it, because we didn't see anything like that in Ethereum or any of the other spaces at that time either, right? And now like it's all the rage, and you look at these things that like are, well, not even now it's a little bit different, right? But I remember back in the days when, you know, the first decentralized exchanges came out on Ethereum, and they were so subpar. It was, I'm sure I still have coins in some of them somewhere that like got like moved to one contract on the way to like 3 different ones that you had to route through, and like I just gave up. I was just like, I don't know, right? It needs to be like more of a plug and play option, which I think is really good. So yeah, very cool. So as a BP then, like, because different BPs have different focuses, right? Like I know like there's some very technical BPs. I can reference, you know, a few, obviously, you know, like different BPs working on like history nodes, different VPs working on like social kind of constructs, different VPs working on like onboarding things such as like gray mass or EOS authority. Like what are you guys working on mostly? Like what is your focus as a BP now, and what was it when you started, and what is it now, and has that changed or evolved over time?
Oh, well, when we first started, it was definitely all about evangelizing EOS. And that's why everything was about social media, running events, getting people to understand the concept of EOS as EOS mainnet, you know, bringing people on board and growing the community. You know, at the back of it, it was always about, you know, you have to provide infrastructure and governance type services. On the EOS mainnet, we never made it into the top 21. So we never actually produced any blocks and never actually participated in the on-chain governance. However, like whenever we would go to the functions and conferences around the world, we would always, you know, put forward our opinion about how things could be run. And we've always been a very active community member. Of late, you know, infrastructure and services and providing quality, solid infrastructure and solid services has been an absolute focus from us. Our technology, or our infrastructure footprint is quite a lot bigger now. You know, we provide very, very busy, very well-performing API interfaces. We provide solid block production services for the chains that we actually are producing blocks. And we provide history services. We provide you know, atomic marketplace services. So we're actually running a lot of code. Like, you know, EOSIO has produced Hyperion. You know, we run Hyperion across Wax, Telos, Fio, and Proton. We actually run, you know, full history services. And a lot of these services are really busy. You know, this morning we were getting on our EOS, just on EOS front end, typical APIs, we're getting 1,000 hits a second. Like right now, it's just running. It's constantly. It's around about between 800 and 1,200 hits a second. Our Wax API is about 200 a second. Our Wax Hyperion is 70 requests a second right now. So 70 historical requests a second on our nodes. Obviously querying, you know, NFT statuses and you know, transaction history. So we're very, very strong in that space, making sure that the service we provide is fantastic, and we're signing the blocks. But other than that, we've got, obviously, I mentioned Rewired.one, which is our development business that was born out of EOSphere Dev, which is run by Brendan and Torben on our team. And, you know, Shelly and I are obviously investors and work closely with them. Most of their work, or most of the work on the Rewired.one team, is all on the private chain. So we've won some large contracts, and we actually work quite closely with the Block One EOSIO team about specific features and functions, about how to actually use EOSIO in a private chain. On Fio, we actually on Fio, we're building a platform along with Barcelona, Dublin, and Amsterdam, which is going to be an onboarding platform where you can come on with a credit card and purchase a Fio domain and a Fio account, just to help streamline and bring, you know, the typical new user, mom and pop can be able to come on and actually get some value out of you know, Fio, and the way that you can move multiple cryptocurrencies and interact with them, but with something as simple as looking as a typical EOS address. And And we're actually building a platform right now. It's a EOSIO monitoring and alerts platform, which is going to be released as open source, which the block producers and developers around the world will be able to run to keep tabs on their infrastructure, even if it's a small amount of infrastructure or a large footprint of infrastructure. It's very important for the services that we offer to be very hygienic and very well performing. And even though we've got some really competent BPs, often things fall by the side. You'll be dropping blocks, or your APIs would go down, or there'll be a fork, and you won't know unless you've got some kind of bespoke monitoring solution. Well, this is going to be an out-of-the-box solution that everybody can run internally. It's not going to be something public that you have to go and share, or a portal. It's your own portal that you can run to keep tabs on your infrastructure to make sure that you're running optimum. So we're building that at the moment. So I would say that we're still very social. We're still very, we evangelize EOS and EOSIO and all of our chains, but we're definitely more on a service provider space, quality services, and building platforms that can help run quality services and bring people into the ecosystem. That's kind of like where our focus is at the moment.
Yeah, I know for us, it took us a really long time to be able to produce blocks on the mainnet. And like just recently, we were able to produce our first blocks. I have to be careful what I say here, because what I say on my show and what I say here is sometimes very different. I don't want to get us in trouble. But I think what I can say is this. It annoys me a little bit. There's a lot of great block producers out there, yourselves included, but it annoys me a little bit that a lot of the infrastructure block BPs that are doing things, because let's face it, there almost isn't enough full history node providers on EOS and some of these other chains, right? And it could cause a problem, later down the road. I don't think we're there yet, but a lot of the BPs that are getting voted in, you never hear from them. They're hard to contact. The exchange BPs in particular, yes, they do kind of provide a service, but I kind of feel like if we're going to be voting in, again, this is my personal opinion, not GenerEOS's, but I kind of feel like if we're going to be voting in BPs like Binance, that there should be EOS coin listings over there. And if we're not going to do that, then the public should be voting in BPs that are head down working on solutions to keep the network running, because that's not always the case.
I'm absolutely with you on that. Totally with you on that.
But yeah, that's kind of my take. So I want to go back. Let's pretend that conversation didn't happen. No, you're right. But I want to go back to this, because I think this is interesting, and this is something that we resonate with as well. And you just mentioned this in your last comment, right? You guys are a certified carbon neutral block producer, right? And if anywhere in the world this means something, it's Australia. Right, we're pretty big into carbon neutrality as well. We're undertaking a new release with Yoshi drops as we speak. It should be out early next month at the latest, probably before. Whereby we're going to use some of our block producer, funds to actually sink carbon with one seed, and put in a bunch of trees, and we're going to do a generous drop alongside Yoshi drops, and pretty much all the funding is going to go to sink carbon, which I feel is really important. For me, I'm a permaculturist, actually. That's one of the things I do in my spare time. Permaculture, if you don't know, was kind of developed by Bill Mollison in Australia, in Tasmania of all places. It's one of these countries whereby if you're not careful, you're screwed. Yes, it's a massive island, but the ecosystem in Australia is just so fragile. And recently with global warming, we're seeing these forest fires, these bushfires, like droughts, heavy weather patterns. You really notice it a lot in Australia, and other parts of the world too, but much more than that. So I just want you to go into this, what does EOS or EOSIO technology provide in terms of planetary responsibility that maybe you can speak on?
I think first and foremost, it's DPoS. It's not proof of work, which means you don't have to have 101 CPUs and GPUs and ASICs consuming kilowatts and kilowatts of power in order to brute force try and guess the hash of a block. it does not happen. In DPoS, you are essentially elected to produce blocks. So your PC or the server that you're running on, obviously you want a fast CPU, but it sits idle. It sits idle until it's your turn to produce a block, and then it's just a little blip of power consumption and CPU use, and then it just sits idle. So there is no mass. It's the same as just running a computer, right? However, as chains get bigger, you need more, memory and hard disk space. But for the most part, the production nodes just sit idle, quietly consuming, a really, really small amount of kilowatts. I mean, you can run an effective block production node with, less than 100 watts, right? No problem, right? However, as you start to scale out your services and you've got disk arrays running lots of, historical information, it'll be a little bit more power consumption, but it's nowhere near the kilowatts. I mean, the rack that we've got inside of our DR is the only one that I've actually got a power monitor specifically on. Other ones are in the data center, but we're only consuming 500 watts, and that's just 500. It's nothing compared to like a mining operation.
Right. Yeah. That might be less than some households in the US or China, to be honest.
Yeah, it's negligible, right? So I think that's the kind of core of the EOSIO technology is. It's just really just computers running rather than heavy mining operations consuming power, because it's not really mining.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm sure you're aware, as I am, and some of our guests, some of our people who are watching as well. But like that to me is what really sells the vision of Wax in particular. I don't know enough about Ultra to speak on it, but I think when you're looking at things like collectibles, or you're looking at things like digital art, or even like, music videos on the blockchain, who does that? Sorry, I like these shameless plugs with relevance. But like that to me is where the future is, right? Is because like we're not going to want to have to deal with all of this crazy, stuff. And like you alluded to earlier, the ability to onboard people through FIO is something that I'm actually really excited about. Like what those guys are doing is incredibly grandma friendly.
Yeah. Blockchain should be simple, or cryptocurrency at least. So let's not obfuscate them. So blockchain and then cryptocurrency is like a dApps that runs on a blockchain. But cryptocurrency should be simple for everybody to use. It should be as simple as pulling a note out of your wallet, and paying it at the cash register. You don't want to have to remember this huge string, wait 3 hours for your transaction to go through, and then you get your coffee. No, we don't want that. And HeyFIO is about making it simple and easy for everybody. And that's why when you see the HeyFIO portal that we'll be launching, doesn't look anything like the typical wallet type interfaces. It's more like there's less stuff on the screen. It's easy to see what you need to do. Hey, you need a FIO address. This is your address. Hey, there, you're all set. This makes cryptocurrency easy. If you want to get get a payment, you send a request for a payment. Somebody doesn't send an unsolicited payment to you. You send them a request, they get it, and then they pay through to an address that's so easy to see, which would be like my HeyFIO address is ross@EOSphere. How easy is that?
Yeah, and what's interesting most for me is like I kind of missed the value proposition in that. Like I was one of the first people to be kind of vocal about the fact that like Ethereum is still allowing you to send transactions to addresses that don't exist is really stupid. Like if we can't even get that right, like that's something that EOS kind of did properly, right? But then what FIO came and did was like you said, allowing people to send a payment request, right? Like
it's like, why didn't we do that before? It's
right. Like, you can just bill people. So I'm really excited about that. I mean, so like I think all EOS IO chains are doing great. Like my favorites obviously are Wax, because that's kind of where I'm personally operational on. I like what FIO's doing. I think this is going to be huge, using the technology to be able to basically bridge all blockchains. Essentially, like you have one readable address that your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, whatever can go to. I think that's brilliant. So I'm a big fan of what they're doing. And I also really like the value proposition of Ultra and what they're going to do with gaming. I think that's really interesting, even though I'm not a gamer. Again, I'm not throwing shade at like any of these other blockchains. I'm just talking about the ones that I use. For you though, like, do you have any favorites in, like, I know you're not supposed to say this as a block producer, but like as an individual, do you have like any like of these that you're really excited about? Is my first question. My second question is, there's a lot of blockchains in the EOSIO network recently that are kind of using custodial solutions, right? Like Wax is one of them with their Wax Cloud wallet. I know like FIO, there's some custodial solutions in there with the integrations that they're doing with some of their wallets. Do you have an opinion on, you know, custodial versus non-custodial, and is that going to be a problem for the future of EOSIO, do you think, for mainstream adoption, or is it going to be a benefit actually?
I think it's great to say that it's time to decentralize the world. You know, practically, it's often quite difficult to get a solid public-facing service. However, it is very important to ensure that your users have always got access to their actual private keys. You don't want to just be a completely sidebar solution. You know, for instance, in our Hey FIO platform, you actually log into the platform and create an account in a database on the back end, but that is bound through to an actual an address on the network itself. So there's a degree of, okay, you know, the platform has your credentials, but it enables us to, but we still give them the private key. If they want it, you can download it, right? So there's a kind of column A and column B, a kind of blend between the two. Sometimes you need it to make it easy, you know. I don't think it's fair to just expect, you know, new users or, you know, you know, grandma to come on and suddenly understand the whole concept of managing her own wallet inside, you know, and with these keys and that kind of stuff. I think it's definitely going to be a bit of both, depending on what you want to do. If you want to make it super easy, you've got to provide some kind of custodial type front end. You always got to have that. At least for now.
Out of all the people on the planet, like, grandma probably has the better knowledge base and ability to grow her own food than anyone, because we don't teach that kind of stuff anymore.
That's right.
But how often do you find grandma in, you know, the garden tending to anything more than her roses, right? Like, she wants to go to the supermarket. This kind of, I'm a little bit annoyed that I'm saying this, because, but she wants to go to the supermarket because she trusts that. She trusts that more. She trusts that process more, right? Like, she wants to use these services at the bank and pay a small premium because she knows that, like, you know, if she has a grandma moment and she loses, you know, her password or something happens to her card, that somebody else can fix it. And I think there's something that comes with the security of the real world that we live in that a lot of people don't want to give up. And they look at like something like blockchain or cryptocurrency, and they're like, wow, this is way too complicated. Like, I have to manage this myself, right? And so, like, if we can, you know, usher them into that, you know, decentralized kind of idea, I think it's good. So,
and that's why FIO is going to definitely give that whole adoption a bootstrap. I'm pretty sure of it, because, you know, it's blockchain agnostic. It is just that layer that helps you engage with these complicated blockchains, you know, and complicated cryptocurrencies. You know, when you ask me about,
go ahead. Go ahead.
When you ask me about what my favorite chain is, I think every single one of our supported chains has got a specific thing that they are really good at, you know. And, you know, some of them are a little bit more generalist. Obviously, EOS is like, you know, that's the big daddy. It's the one that everything comes from. You know, right. Wax with the NFTs, Telos with its governance, and, you know, dStore, which is going to be the decentralized storage. You know, FIO with its, you know, making cryptocurrency simple for everybody. Proton with its awesome wallet. or I don't know if you've heard of Or before. That it's still pretty much startup, but it's provide an ability for you to log into your account using Google or Microsoft Live or whatever. It makes it a bit easy for you to engage with specific dApps because you'll be able to have that kind of mainstream credential type stuff. And then of course Jungle, which is the original testnet. All of them have got their functions. Of course, you could also say that each one of those could do the same thing as all the other ones, as long as they had the contract on. But you look at the communities that they operate in, you look at the type of BPs that run them and the type of dApps that are built on them, and they've definitely got their specific features. And maybe that's what it's all about. That is Dan's grand vision. We're going to have thousands of different EOSIO chains all engaging with each other. Maybe that'll be EOS in the center.
I don't know if this is true or not, or if this is just my jaded perspective, but I kind of feel like this is where a lot of what went wrong with EOS on the mainnet went wrong, is that like there were people that had these notions that like everything should be done in like this way on the mainnet. And what I really like about some of these side chains is that they figured out a way to like take the parts that they liked about the EOSIO technology and amplify that in a way that worked best for what they were trying to achieve, right? And I think Wax and Telos are the perfect examples for this, right? Like Telos basically said, okay, we're gonna build something that's like governance proof, like foolproof, right? And they did it, right? And same with Wax, like their easy onboarding might not work for DeFi on EOS, or there might be issues that people have with it, but for what they are using it for, I mean, it was brilliant. So, I lost my notes here, but I wanted to, ask you a couple more questions if you got a little bit more time. So that in mind, in 5 years or 3 years, because I don't think it's going to take that long personally, where do you see EOS being in the grand scale of not only crypto, but just finance and technology in general? I lost you, actually. I still can't. You're muted. Okay, there you go.
There we go. Hey, the technology is working or not working. So you said, where do you think we're going to be in the next 3 years?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years. Where do you think EOS will be in terms of like, blockchain, like, and
EOS
technology
EOS mainnet.
EOSIO technology in general, like any of these chains or the mainnet, however you want to answer it, actually, Russ.
When businesses want to use blockchain for whatever function or feature they require internally, EOSIO, I'm convinced, is the only way to do it. It's fast, it's robust. You can run it as a private chain. You don't have to be a rocket scientist in order to write a smart contract on it. The skills in order to program on it are readily available, and it's not proof of work. It's internally you can just do what you need to do to get the job done. It's going to take off in the private sector for private chains. Sorry, not private sector, just private chains. So it could be a big public company, but internally they want to ensure that their various businesses around the world, there's a degree of an audit trail or whatever. They want to alleviate some of the bureaucracy when it comes to authorizing processes. EOSIO is the way to go. We've done it already with a large company in Australia with Rewider1. We built a platform that enables a degree of immutability on the games that they play. They're actually a gaming type company to the public, but when you actually purchase a ticket to the game, it's then recorded on the blockchain, and it's easily auditable from the Australian tax authorities and any of the the typical regional authorities that need to have insight into how you're running your business. We've got another platform that we're building that enables us to ensure that backup data is not manipulated, and we'll store those hashes of that backup data on an immutable blockchain. That's an audit trail. Emanate, which is a big partner of us, who have got a music platform. The music platform is there to ensure that artists are fairly compensated by working out exactly how much of the music is being consumed and paying the collaborators of that music to the contract, to the letter of the contract that's stored as a smart contract, how much percentage of that song goes to which one of those artists, and pays them in real time. All of that is very, very valuable. It's a way for you to actually make blockchain work for you in a real business, and EOSIO is the one. And that's where I think it's going to go to. It's going to come down to that. EOS mainnet as itself, I think I'm really interested to see what happens with Bullish. The fact that it's got all of these heavy hitters involved with it, the fact that EOS has been spoken about by those heavy hitters at that level, gives me a level of optimism about it. I think that it's going to be mainstream, and people are going to know what EOS is at that heavy hitter financial side. All the other chains, like I think Wax is going to do fantastic with NFTs. It's going to do fantastic with marketplaces. I think Telos might have a really good shot at being adopted for decentralized storage, adopted for people that want to vote on chain, have some kind of publicly available information, governance information that's publicly available. And I think, of course, FIO is going to really help people engage with the cryptocurrency side of things across all of these different chains. Cryptocurrencies definitely had to stay, and blockchain is the platform that it runs on. And I think that 3 years is probably too soon. I think in the next 10 years, blockchain technology is going to just be part and parcel of how things work in the world. I always have this analogy. I say blockchain is like virtualization technology in the 90s, like your server virtualization technology. Everybody knew it was kind of existed. Maybe you want to play with it. Maybe you want to deploy, a few test environments, but oh my goodness, you're never ever going to have to, you're never going to run production on it. And now your data center, if it's not virtualized or put into the cloud virtualized, well, then you're not running a real data center, right? So it'll be the same thing with blockchain.
I'm going to have to figure out how to clip that out and just basically post it all over the internet and say, hey, you're not voting for EOSphere because here's, 10 reasons why you should be. Right? Like that was a really it's almost like you had planned that out, and I know that you didn't. It was and I agree. I agree with a lot of your points, right? Like you've obviously been putting a lot of thought into that, which I like to see for a long time. But yeah, right, privatization of this technology is going to be huge. Disclaimer, I am part of the DAC, but I think something like what Blockbase is building is going to be amazing if it ever takes off, right? Because this is encrypted data that uses blockchain within the business. I think that's going to be huge, right? I think that in terms of what Bullish has in potential, I'm really hoping that they get it out right this time, right? This will be, the third time that they've tried to put something out. So hopefully they'll avoid the mistakes from the past. But yeah, like I said, I think that a lot of those points that you outlaid there are bang on perfect. And I think that's, especially with the case of Bullish, a really good friend of mine is very anti-EOS and a little bit anti-Dan, not really a fan. And he said to me the other day, we were talking about Cardano or something, and he's just like, man, I don't know what they're doing. It's just driving me insane. People speculating. He's like, at least he's like, at least Dan is still building stuff, right? At least Bullish is still out there. And he's like, and actually Bullish might actually do well. And for me to hear that from someone who's a kind of negative about EOSIO and the EOS space, mostly because he doesn't understand the difference between EOS and EOSIO. But for me to hear that coming from somebody from somewhere else in the space and saying they have a really good chance about making Bullish work, that speaks volumes to me, right? If you have other people looking in from outside and saying, oh, wait a minute, they might have something here with Bullish, that's huge to me, right? Because that never happens over here, right? another almost unsung hero, and it's one that has a varying degree of success, is Wax and the NFT platform. I mean, how can people even run NFTs on these other chains that every time I want to just, it's a 50 cents card, but it's going to cost me $180 in order to transfer it to my mate or to do anything fancy with it, bind it with another whatever.
You know, it's just insane. Wax has got this freaking solid marketplace, the solid NFT framework that doesn't cost you anything to send these things around.
Right.
So you can literally start to do really good things.
Not even send them around, mint them. It doesn't, like, it costs you almost nothing in minting fees, right? Compared to like hundreds of dollars over on Ethereum. And don't even get me started on like, you know, NFTs and DeFi in the broader crypto space. Like DeFi is another one that really annoys me, right? The fact that like, so one of the you know, benefits of using EOSIO technology is when things come in to be produced as blocks, they come in like order and they get produced in that order, right? There's no paying more money to be able to front run transactions and throw the little guys under the bus, because like, you know, you're paying extra money in Ethereum DeFi to be able to front run the orders that are in before and capitalize upon those people who are in the queue who are waiting for their orders to be processed. That to me is like almost worse than the system that exists in today's world, right? Like it's openly transparent, screwing the other guy over, right? And so we have this technology, you know, that exists in EOSIO that is, you know, good for the planet. It's not bad for the planet anyway. So that's a start, right? Like not being bad for the planet in today's day and age is kind of good for the planet, right? We have this ability to be able to make a more fair world with the technology that exists, right? And the speed to be able to do it and deliver on it, right? Like you were quoting some of the speeds earlier, like there's no other blockchain that can compare to that, really. I mean, and
it's really snappy. It's snappy and it's free and it's solid.
Right.
I love it.
I think that we have a really, really bright future. So yeah, we kind of touched on all of, you know, my questions that I had for you. It's kind of seems like, are there any, you know, dApps in particular, other than Bullish, because we kind of talked about that are running on EOSIO that you're really excited about on any of the chains?
Emanate. They've been our partner from when we first met with them in Sydney in 2018. We've been working very, very closely with the team. Rewired.one, our development business, has actually been building with their team, you know, augmenting their team and helping them, you know, move forward into the NFT space, move forward into changing the front end so it can run on a mobile phone, etc. You definitely have to have a look at them. Hey, Emanate.live. Right now, they've got a large collection of artists that are actually getting paid as you listen to it. You know, I never even realized that it was an issue with artists getting fairly compensated for their work. I did not know that. And you know, I've actually got to meet some artists now, you know, through Sean, Jimmy, and Trent at Emanate, and you know, it's a real problem. And you know what's fantastic about their setup is the way that we can enter into a contract together. Say you and I are musicians, we can enter into a contract that gets stored into a smart contract, and we both sign it and agree on how much compensation that we each will receive from that song being listened to, and we'll get compensated as people listen to it. You know, there's no middleman, and there's certainly not 5 or 6 or 7 producers and you know, music houses that are taking a cut, right? It's just you, me, and the music. And that also means that you can use my music. I can give you access to use my music, and I'll get compensated for it as well. It's fantastic. And that's the beauty of blockchain, and it's the beauty of EOSIO.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Emanate. Like they're one of what I listen to a lot of YouTube and stuff in my car, but like, you know, when I'm at home and I'm working, I often put on Emanate because there's some really good artists on there, like some music that I quite like, and you get to stream it. And every time you stream it, they get paid, which is big. And right, like I'm part of the Yoshi Drops team, so we kind of understand that this is a really big issue because that's kind of what we're trying to solve over there as well. We're doing it a little bit of a different way, right? Like we're using NFTs to like throw into the mix and digital vinyls and stuff like that. But I think like when it comes to music, when it comes to videos, when it comes to movies, when it comes to like IP rights in general of individuals, I think that like blockchain technology in general can have like a massive impact on the world. If I'm honest about it, right? BitSchool wants to know, I don't know, Morton. Morton's always, I love Morton. He's one of my favorite people, but he's always giving me a hard time. I'm pretty sure like this started at 10 a.m. Perth time, did it not?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was 10 a.m. Perth time. So yeah, I might have screwed up something else, but it's okay as long as I got that one right. The pools on Bullish. I don't know about this. BitSchool is asking about the pools on Bullish. I'm not. So I'm guessing I know what it is, but do you have any information on that, Ross?
No, I don't. I think no, I don't.
Yeah, I think we'll have to dive into that deeper on another episode because I got to do a little bit of research on it, but. Yeah, like
but I think we've got to see exactly what the offering is going to look like. I mean, if you say to me right now, what are they going to be doing? I'll say, okay, they're going to be hashing all of the transactions onto the EOS mainnet.
Right.
I mean, what I really want to see is them use EOS as a key trading pair, and I want to see EOS tokens. I want to see checks on there. I want to see emanate on there. I want to see EOSIO ecosystem being pushed onto this bigger stage. That's what I want.
Well, I want to see, and I'm kind of like that as well, but like I want to see that bottleneck released of like Binance or KuCoin where everything is paired to BTC. And I mean, if you're not on the Ethereum blockchain and you're paired with Ethereum, then you have to go through USDT or through EOS. Like most of these EOS tokens are so far buried beneath the surface on any of these exchanges, even if they were to get on, that it's kind of ridiculous, right? And so block one with their capital of wrapped Bitcoin or Bitcoin in general, which might be wrapped, I don't know, but that pairing to be able to put like solid projects like Checks or Void or Eminent tokens onto these platforms where they can get mainstream exposure is going to be massive, right? Like massive for the liquidity, massive for the market in general. And
the EOS chain is fast enough for them to do that live on chain. They don't have to run it on their own back end, custodial setup. They can actually run it live. We can see everything. We can,
right. And in a sense, it will be like potentially the first 100% openly transparent exchange, right? I mean. It's got that potential.
Dex-ish,
But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that, like, I guess, is there anything else that you'd like to kind of comment on before we wrap things up?
EOSphere have been in the EOSIO space since December 2017. We're in it for the long haul. We're still building on it. We're supporting chains and providing services that I see getting busier and busier and busier. As a matter of fact, our infrastructure footprint has just expanded. We lease service space in Sydney, in Canada, and here in Perth. We've actually got our own DR setup, which runs on some solar power. I'll just put that out there. We've got solar. We've got 5 kilowatts worth of sun generating power. But that's only when the sun's out. I suppose we are in Perth, and there is a lot of sun here in summer.
Right. I was reading about it today. It's like, come on, Queensland. You can't call yourself the Sunshine State. I mean, it's Perth. They get more sunny days than anywhere else in down under, right?
It's very good. It's very good during summer. But I see our infrastructure footprint growing. We're trying to be power conscious, obviously. But the chains are getting busier. Everything is getting busier and it's growing. And I think that we are far ahead of last year or the year before that. It keeps on snowballing. So the more that cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is going to be adopted by dApps that offer services to the mainstream, the more success that we'll see it in this space. And us as block producers are here to, and block producers and service providers are here to make sure that this infrastructure is running so people can get a positive experience.
Right. And just wait till the days where we don't actually have to, because I mean, we do block production in part for profit to be able to sustain ourselves and live, right? Just wait till the day where we actually don't have to cash our tokens out and convert them to fiat to walk into a shop and pay for the coffee, right? Like however this goes, right? Like this is the end goal, at least for me, to see, some sense of mass adoption, even if it's a third party site whereby we can easily convert any token through something like FIO, for example, into like a fiat rail there on the spot to pay for the coffee. But I think that's the end goal, right? To have the production coming in and out, right? Yeah,
it's coming. It's coming.
So yeah. All right. Well, that's kind of all I've got for today.
No, Jimmy, it was great. It was great meeting you. You know, almost in person. It's the first time I've actually, you know, put the name to the face to the name. And yeah, let's absolutely stay in contact.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking forward to getting you out there a little bit more with some of the other projects. Like I think upcoming in August or early September, we want to get GenerEOS and EOSphere together with some of the other Asian producers, because on a crypto writer roundtable that we do to talk about EOS BPs and stuff like that. A lot of times over here in East Asia, especially in the English speaking community, we're almost more segregated than like some of the ones that don't speak English, because we're on like the opposite side of the world, the opposite time zone, right? Like we wake up, we spend like 2 hours catching up on everything that's happening, you know, before we can get to work. And it's kind of, it's good to note like how deeply entrenched, I think, Australia really is in general. I mean, Australia's economy, Australia's business is really deeply entrenched in Asia in general, right? And so it makes sense that like the EOS block producers are as well, right? There's some really strong relationships that have formed in the Asian region, and I think Australia, you know, needs to be recognized as forming a lot of those connections. And so I really want to have, you know, you guys represented, us guys represented fairly in the grand BP thing, in the roundtable lives. So definitely we'll see you again, Ross. Thanks very much for everyone in the comments as well for joining, and we'll see you guys all on the flip side.